When the word horror is mentioned, a couple of names are usually attached to it, like Stephen King, Edgar Allan Poe, Clive Barker, Mary Shelley, Anne Rice, and I would even add Neil Gaiman to the game board. Although their works have impacted big time in other media. With this in mind, there is one name that I would not necessarily put over them in a writing point of view, but I would in terms of overall contribution to horror and the influence it has over it. This is, of course, doesn't matter where you've been, you have come across with something inspired by him. Online? Well, I could come up with a bunch of names like Salgo, Slenderman. Movies? TV shows? Yes, Lovecraft has been in your life longer than you may even know. But the question would be, why? Why have his works impacted the minds of so many creators? Why do so many writers reference his mythos? And why am I asking you to give a chance to his works? Let's dive in and see why you should read/watch H.P. Lovecraft. You may know Lovecraft is a horror writer, but what type of horror does he fit in? Because, yes, horror is kind of extensive. I mean, there are demons, vampires, werewolves, and even serial killers. So, who does this guy uses to scare the reader? Well, it's not a matter of who, it's more of a matter of what. I mean, yeah, sure, he has a whole pantheon of gods waiting in the dark, but what's scary about is the concept of cosmic horror. So, cosmic horror is this genre that emphasizes the fear of the unknown. With most monsters that I listed, you already know how they work, what they do, what they look like, and how you can stop them. Not only that, in most stories there's this sense of morality, that if you're a good person, you will probably come out on top and defeat the great evil. In Lovecraft's world, most of the monsters are so alien to us that their mere sight will make us insane. Our minds wouldn't be able to handle what we are seeing in front of us. The whole basis for the fear of Lovecraft is that humans have ingrained in themselves the idea that they are the top species to exist. We are the alpha, and our technology proves that. Along with that, we have expectations of what looks right for creatures and what doesn't. And this idea of something so incredible, so powerful, so foreign, as an elder god who shares no resemblance at all to what we know, shatters the notion of us being the top dog of the universe. It gives the same kind of dread you get when you spend a night stargazing, knowing that those tiny specks out there are billions of years old, and some of them may have already exploded, yet you still see them. So as you can see, the man had batshit ideas and a never-ending type of imagination. I mean, in a time when most sci-fi and horror revolved around stupid robots and giant bugs, and yeah, like the mixture of a man and a wolf, he arrives and says, "You idiots are nothing in comparison to the emptiness of the stars." that is something rough, but also spectacular to say the least. However, that is judging the man's creativity, like the idea, the concept. It's time to talk about the actual execution, the writing. And I'm gonna say something that most Lovecraft fans already know, like deep down, but they also don't really want to admit. But come on, we need to be honest about this. I say this as someone who has read a bunch of his stories and truly loves them. However, Lovecraft had this extreme tendency to use the same words over and over and over again to describe something ancient and evil, like eldritch. But most of all, he didn't really describe them. He gave vague ideas of what the thing will look like. But it mostly came down to the reader's interpretation, which is good for a horror story because there's nothing scarier than what you imagine. Your imagination is the scariest place. But once you read some of his work, yeah, it gets kind of repetitive. I must add, he was an expert at the first person narration. I mean, a big reason it's so easy to get into his stories is because he places you in the side. He makes you feel as disturbed and confused as the main character is. For example, I still remember the first time I read the end to one of his earliest stories, Dagon. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols, and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down in their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind, of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean floor shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium. The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as some of the slippery body lumbering against it. It shall not find me. God, that hand, the window, the window. I was about 11 when I read that, and let me tell you, I truly hated fish for a long time. I wanted nothing to do with it or the sea. Anyways, as pointed out by the incredible author Neil Gaiman, the overuse of this made you think, wait, why is the guy still writing this and not running out of that place? And yeah, it's a valid question. It's kind of like in a found footage movie when the guy is still holding a camera when everyone already left and something's coming for him and the idiot still doesn't let the camera go. Yeah, there's some inner logic fails around. So, to summarize, Lovecraft wasn't the best at writing story. He wasn't one to conform to an act structure or develop characters or even, show off his monsters, and his work can be painfully expository. Then why do we love him so much? Why is the guy so popular, and why is he worth even reading? Well, his pantheon of gods and overall concept, as I said it before, is kind of awesome. Well, no, not kinda. It is freaking awesome. I mean, when you're gonna read a Lovecraft story, you're not going in for a particular human character and its development. That is not to say he doesn't develop or evolve within the story. But the primary focus is on the gods. The beings that are so above us, we call them gods because we have no other word to explain their immense power. For example, we have the mightiest of them, and the creator of the universe, Azathoth. And by looking at him, you would think this guy is like the ultimate evil. And yeah, he technically is, but he's also the stupidest god, and a heavy sleeper. I mean, most of the time he's sleeping. Primarily because if he wakes up, existence ends, but still, he is kind of stupid. He is not a lurker in the shadows, nor a diabolical mastermind. He's the most powerful, yes, but he's just there, and that's what makes him interesting. The fact that so much chaos is going around in the place he created, and yet he couldn't care less. We have Yog-Sothoth, the key and the gate, the beyond one, the all-in-one and one-in-all. Like many Lovecraftian gods, Yog-Sothoth has many different appearances throughout the various stories of the mythos, and by different authors. However, there seems to be a common agreement that Yog-Sothoth visually manifests as a mass of glowing orbs, with eyes or tendrils in some versions, and in others, simply the orbs. It is heavily implied that Yog-Sothoth is omniscient, and is locked outside the universe, meaning he can know and see all of space at once. And this also means there is no secret hidden from Yog-Sothoth. This sounds horrifying to us. Something with this much knowledge and power must be looking for a way to destroy the human race and, conquer the whole universe. But humans are mere ants to these beings, so they mostly go about their business and don't particularly care about us. Oddly enough, the thing with Yog is that he does interact with humans, and if you know the right words, you can actually summon him and gain something really cool. Like, if you perform the ritual correctly, you could potentially become a millionaire, or have superpowers, or a lot of things. Of course, if you fail, your mind is kicked into a limbo and you'll never escape. But hey, it's kind of worth the risk. And there are many more gods. Some created by Lovecraft, some created by other authors, like Dagon, Olgoth, Shub-Niggurath, Eagle-Anak. They are cool and all, but I want to talk about my favorite god, what I consider to be Lovecraft's greatest creation. And no, in case you're wondering, it's not Cthulhu. I don't hate him or anything, I do like him, but I'm just saying, I'm not gonna be enchanted by a dude that got defeated by a boat. And yes, I know, before you say anything, I know the boat had nothing to do with it, and it was probably that he woke up too early, saw the stars, were in a line, and said, F this man, I'm asleep. But either way, he isn't, and wasn't, and never will be as interesting as... Allow me to introduce you to the god of 1,000 forms, the Black Wind, the faceless god, the howler in the dark, the crawling chaos, Nyarlathotep. Unlike most of the Lovecraftian gods who are asleep or exiled to the stars, Nyarlathotep is quite active, roaming across the earth in many disguises, and also, unlike most of the gods, he has no true form, or at least we have never been told what his true form is. Nyarlathotep is the greatest exception to Lovecraft's set of monsters. He uses human languages, and could easily pass as a human if he wants to. And he always has a defined goal, and uses deception and manipulation to achieve it. He is also a torturer. For example, someone like Cthulhu wakes up and only thinks about spreading death and destruction to humanity. I mean, he's a judge of mankind for a reason. Well, not Nyarlathotep. No. He prefers to spread chaos and madness. For what purpose? He enjoys it. That's it. He enjoys it. Nyarlathotep is one of Lovecraft's earliest creations, and his first appearance was in a poem titled with his own name. From then on, he became a recurring appearance, becoming Lovecraft's most developed character. In the poem, he's kind of this Nietzschean, beyond good and evil Superman, to say something. In the Dream Quest of the Unknown Cadet, he's this tantalizing and mocking trickster deity. In Dreams in the Witch House, he's a satanic Sabbath master, and in The Hunter of the Dark, he's this indescribable, otherworldly entity. There are hundreds of ways to interpret this fascinating character, but I think he deserves a video of his own just to examine how much of a badass god he is. Just to sum it up, Nyarlathotep is a manifestation of entropy. He is, after all, the crawling chaos. So, to me, it seems he's only part of the natural order of things. The universe always falls towards entropy, and Nyarlathotep is here to make sure it happens on Earth as well. However, an interesting aspect that Lovecraft barely touched with Nyarlathotep was the relationship he has with Lovecraft's other most recurring character, Randolph Carter, who in essence is sort of Lovecraft's Van Helsing, to say something. A human investigator who finds himself messing constantly with the forces beyond his comprehension. Their story starts at a dream quest of the unknown Cadet. It's a very good story, but what I liked most was this possibility of developing Carter and Nyarlathotep's struggle. It wasn't really touched on the following books, but trust me when I say it's a really interesting angle, this connection between the two. Now, what stories would I suggest reading if you're interested in getting into this mythos, in Lovecraft mythos? Well, I would say, in no particular order, like I'm just saying some of the stories I think are accessible. The Call of Cthulhu. Kind of cliche to recommend it, like it's like the obvious story to go with, but hey, it follows a recognizable 3-act structure and it's quite coherent. The Shadow over Innsmouth. An easy to follow mystery, cool villains, and a twist that completely destroys the main character, and you as well. At the Mountains of Madness. If you like The Thing, you'll probably enjoy this one. It's got a cool premise, creepy atmosphere, and a twist that really leaves you thinking about the never-ending fight between species. The Dunwich Horror. A core story for Lovecraft's mythos. It has the most significant appearance of the infamous Necronomicon, and the introduction to Azathoth. The Dream Quest of the Unknown Cadet, my personal favorite. Good main character, amazing world building, and an awesome villain. What's not to like? As you can see, Lovecraft has truly impacted our culture, maybe even more than we ever thought of. And as much as I love for you to pick up one of his stories and dive into the master's work by itself, I know many don't really like reading. And hey, that's cool, because honestly, Lovecraft's work can also be enjoyable when you're actually seeing the horror itself. So, I'm gonna tell you a list with movies, TV shows, comics, and even manga that have Lovecraft as a major influence. The Thing, obviously. Eraserhead. Twin Peaks. The Lighthouse. This one was kind of obvious, to say the least. Alien. Cloverfield? This one particularly because, again, you never know. You have clues, but the actual monster is never found out where it comes from. It just sort of arrives and brings death and destruction. In the Mouth of Madness, heavily inspired by Lovecraft and Stephen King as well. But again, Stephen King took a lot of inspiration from Lovecraft. Anyways, it's an incredible movie, very underrated, but totally worth a watch, especially on Halloween. The Evil Dead franchise. Silent Hill. I have not seen the movies. I'm sticking to the video games. The monsters, the concept, and even